Welcome to another deep dive here. We were so intrigued when you suggested Michael Morpurgo's Kensuke's Kingdom.
It's a fantastic choice.
Yeah, and we're really excited to kind of dig into like all those elements, like what makes these characters stick with you, those unexpected turns,
Absolutely.
all those deeper insights it offers. And we've delved into quite a bit of material about the book, reviews, analyses, just to give us a solid understanding.
Yeah, we want to make sure we cover it all.
Exactly. So we can really extract the essence of this adventure, but where does this incredible journey begin? It all starts with a huge shift for young Michael and his family, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, we see that Michael's family is going through some major changes. His parents lose their jobs.
Right off the bat.
Yeah. And this leads them to make a really bold decision.
Yeah.
They decide to sell all their belongings
Wow.
and use the money to buy a sailboat, the Peggy Sue, and they're going to sail around the world. Talk about starting a new chapter. What do you think about this choice?
Oh, it's definitely setting us up for an adventure, isn't it? Like that willingness to embrace the unknown, head first.
Absolutely.
And they do. They embark on this grand voyage, experiencing the vastness of the world. But then, as they are crossing the Pacific, things take a very dramatic and unforeseen turn.
They do. A fierce storm hits.
Yeah.
And in all the chaos, Michael and his faithful sheepdog, Stella Artois. Remember Stella Artois with the floppy ear?
Oh, of course.
They're swept overboard. Just like that, their big adventure is thrown into jeopardy.
Absolutely devastating. I mean, lost in the vast ocean. But, Michael, he shows incredible quick thinking in such a terrifying situation.
He does. He has this moment of resourcefulness where he grabs his football.
Wow.
A memento from his best friend Eddie back home.
Oh, right.
And he uses it as a flotation device. It's a simple thing, but it really speaks volumes about that human instinct to survive, to cling on to something familiar when everything is chaos.
It's like a lifeline to his old life, isn't it?
Exactly.
A little piece of home.
Yeah. And against all odds, he ends up washing ashore on this completely unfamiliar island.
He does. Wakes up on what seems like a deserted island. And thankfully, Stella Artois is right there beside him. This is where his solo journey for survival begins. And the environment's beautiful, but dangerous.
It's that classic human versus nature, isn't it?
It is. But there's this feeling that something isn't quite right. Like the island might not be as deserted as it first appears.
Yeah, there are those hints.
There are. As Michael starts to explore, he finds these mysterious supplies of food and water left for him. It's unexpected. Someone's looking after him. It creates this whole air of mystery. Who's doing this? And why?
Yeah, who is this mysterious benefactor?
Yeah.
And eventually the mystery unravels when he encounters Kensuke. So who is this enigmatic figure? Well, Kensuke is this elderly Japanese man who's chosen to live a solitary life on this island. And initially he's very reclusive, just watching Michael from a distance. And we soon learn that he has a deep connection with the island's orangutans. Like he sees them and the island itself almost as his own special kingdom to protect. And with his arrival, the whole dynamic of Michael's survival changes.
So it's not exactly a warm welcome, is it? It's more like, these are the boundaries.
Exactly. Kensuke sets very clear rules for Michael. No fires, and he has to stay within a specific area. And this distance, along with the fact that they can't understand each other's language, well, it creates a lot of tension. You start thinking about how trust is built across those kinds of divides.
And it really makes you wonder, how can they ever bridge that gap? But then a significant event happens. It's a painful encounter for Michael, but it ends up changing everything.
Absolutely. Michael gets stung by a jellyfish.
Oh, ouch.
Which, could have been really serious. But Kensuke steps in and nurses him back to health. Such a selfless act of caring. It's a turning point. The wariness starts to fade. What do you think this says about empathy and its power to overcome differences?
It just goes to show that even without a shared language, simple human kindness can create this incredibly powerful bond.
It really can.
And it's from this point that their unique friendship starts to blossom, despite their totally different backgrounds and life experiences.
They really find ways to connect. Michael starts teaching Kensuke some English words. And Kensuke, he becomes this mentor to Michael. He teaches him how to fish, how to find edible plants on the island. He even teaches him how to paint using natural pigments, capturing the beauty of the island. It's this really beautiful exchange of knowledge and cultures.
And we start to learn about Kensuke's life before he came to the island, which gives his character so much depth and explains his need for isolation.
It does. Kensuke slowly opens up about his past. We learn that he was a doctor, served as a medic in the Japanese Navy during World War II, and he carries this heavy burden of believing he lost his wife, Kimi, and his son, Michiya, in the atomic bombing of Nagasaki.
Mm.
This tragedy explains why he chose to exile himself, seeking peace and solitude on the island. Knowing this, how do you see his initial reluctance to engage with Michael?
It makes his distance understandable, doesn't it? Like a form of self-preservation,
Yeah.
protecting himself from more pain. And it makes his decision to open up to Michael even more meaningful. We also learn about his deep connection with the orangutans.
He has this special bond with Tomodachi and Kikanbo, two orangutans he's especially close to. He sees them as part of his kingdom. He feels responsible for their safety and for the whole balance of the island's ecosystem. This respect for nature is woven throughout the story.
And Michael, being a curious, adventurous young boy, he doesn't always listen to Kensuke's warnings, does he? Like there's that time when his youthful impulsiveness gets him into a bit of trouble.
There is. Despite Kensuke's clear warnings about the dangers of the sea, Michael's curiosity takes over, and he goes swimming. And that's what leads to that painful jellyfish sting, which, ironically, becomes this crucial moment in their bond. It highlights that contrast between Michael's youthful recklessness and Kensuke's hard-earned wisdom.
But through these experiences and Kensuke's guidance, Michael really changes. He matures.
Oh, he does.
And he becomes so much more responsible.
Right. He learns those essential survival skills, adapts to the environment, and he develops a much deeper understanding of the natural world, all because of Kensuke's patient teaching. It really shows how challenging situations and unexpected mentors can shape us.
However, their peaceful existence is shattered when these outsiders arrive. The killer men. Who are they, and what are they after?
Well, these killer men turn out to be poachers. They pose a serious threat to the delicate ecosystem of the island, particularly to the orangutans that Kensuke fiercely protects. They're only interested in profit. Their presence disrupts the peace and balance of the island.
And this new threat forces Michael and Kensuke to put aside any lingering differences and unite for a common cause.
Yeah, they have to. The arrival of the poachers creates this shared purpose for them. They have to defend the orangutans and the island they both call home. This shared adversity deepens their bond and highlights their loyalty to each other and the natural world they cherish. It really makes you think about how facing challenges together can strengthen even the most unlikely alliances.
And after all that, a beacon of hope appears for Michael in the form of a potential rescue.
It does. After quite a long time on the island, a ship appears on the horizon. For Michael, this is pure joy, the chance to finally be reunited with his family. The longing for home after being isolated for so long is huge.
But leaving isn't that simple, is it? Kensuke makes a profound decision about his own future.
He does. He's found peace and purpose on the island, protecting its wildlife. He makes the tough choice to stay. But he asks Michael to keep his existence and the island's location a secret for 10 years. He wants to protect the island's delicate balance and ensure his own solitude continues. What does this request reveal about Kensuke's character and his priorities?
I think it speaks to his selflessness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
His complete dedication to the island. But that's a huge promise for a young boy to carry. And we know Michael honors that promise.
He does. The epilogue jumps forward a decade. Michael, now an adult, keeps his word to Kensuke and shares his incredible story in a book. He calls it Kensuke's Kingdom.
It's a fitting title. And then there's this amazing and unexpected revelation at the end.
Yes, in a really touching twist, Michael gets a letter from Kensuke's son, Michiya. And we find out that both Michiya and his mother, Kimi, actually survived the atomic bombing. It brings a sense of closure to Kensuke's tragic past and opens the door for a future connection, maybe even reconciliation. It leaves you with such a feeling of hope, the power of family enduring.
It's such a beautiful and hopeful way to end the story. So as we reflect on the whole narrative, what are some of the main themes and insights that Kensuke's Kingdom gives us? And this is especially for you, our listener.
I think at its core, it's a story about the power of unlikely friendships. Morpurgo beautifully depicts the bond between Michael and Kensuke, two people from completely different worlds, young and old, British and Japanese. They can't even speak the same language. Their connection shows us that those basic human needs for companionship, understanding, respect, they can break down even the biggest barriers. It reminds us that meaningful relationships can sprout up in the most unexpected places, and that judging people based on superficial differences can make us miss out on those profound connections.
That's so important, and it's also a gripping story about survival. But it's more than just physical endurance, isn't it?
Exactly. It's not just about finding food and shelter. It's about Michael's emotional resilience, his ability to adapt to this completely new environment. He learns to survive on the island, but also to live with it. And it shows just how strong humans are, that we can not only endure hardship, but learn and grow from it. It says that even in isolation, we can find strengths we never knew we had.
And the book also touches on the impact of war. It's a subtle but powerful theme that resonates even in a story for younger readers.
It does. Through Kensuke's story as a survivor of the Nagasaki bombing, Morpurgo gently introduces the devastation that conflict brings. The fact that Michael, from a nation that was once at war with Japan, formed such a deep bond with Kensuke, it subtly suggests the possibility of healing and understanding even across those historical divides. It makes us think about the scars war leaves behind and how important it is to find common ground despite past conflicts.
And Kensuke's deep respect for nature is a key element of the story, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. His connection to the island and its wildlife, especially the orangutans, shows us how important it is to respect nature and recognize how interconnected all living things are. The threat from the poachers is a stark reminder of what happens when humans exploit the environment. It encourages a deeper appreciation for the natural world and our responsibility to protect it.
Beyond these main themes, what other ideas enrich the story?
Well, we see loyalty in Michael's bond with Stella Artois. We witness Michael growing more responsible as he learns from Kensuke. There's self-discovery for Michael during his time on the island. He learns what he's capable of. Ultimately, the story touches on hope, forgiveness, and the human spirit's ability to find connection and meaning even when completely isolated.
For our listeners who loved Kensuke's Kingdom, what other stories or authors would you recommend that explore similar themes?
If the survival aspect really resonated with you, you might enjoy classics like Robinson Crusoe. It explores isolation and resourcefulness. Or Gary Paulson's Hatchet. That's a more contemporary story about a boy surviving in the wilderness. For stories about unexpected friendships in tough situations, there's Mildred D. Kaler's The Cay. It's about a young white girl stranded on a raft with an elderly black man during World War II. And Scott Odell's Island of the Blue Dolphins. That's about a Native American girl who survives alone on an island.
What about other books by Michael Morpurgo? I mean, he has such a diverse collection of stories.
He does. If you are touched by the themes in Kensuke's Kingdom, I'd recommend Warhorse. It's a poignant story about a boy and his horse during World War I. Private Peaceful offers a powerful account of young soldiers' life in that same war. And there are others that focus on animals, resilience, and life-changing events, like The Butterfly Lion, Why the Whales Came, and Running Wild.
You mentioned some other books that touch on similar themes as well, right?
Yes. Goodnight, Mr. Tom, by Michelle Magorian, explores this touching relationship between a troubled boy and an elderly recluse during wartime. It has a similar emotional depth. And then there's David Allman's Skillig. That book focuses on a mysterious and unusual friendship, also highlighting those unexpected connections that can change our lives.
So let's talk a little bit about the author himself. What makes Michael Morpurgo such a big name in children's literature?
Well, Michael Morpurgo, born in London back in 1943, is one of the most beloved and successful children's authors. He's written over 100 books. And what's really interesting is that he struggled with dyslexia as a child,
Wow.
which makes his success as a writer even more incredible. It shows that learning differences don't have to stop you from pursuing your passions.
And he actually started writing after a career in education, right? How did that shape his writing?
Yes, he was a teacher for many years. And during that time, he realized how powerful storytelling is, how it can connect with and inspire young minds. His time in the classroom definitely gave him insight into what resonates with children and how to write stories that spark their imaginations.
And he's done so much more than just write his own stories. He's a real champion for children's literature, isn't he?
Absolutely. Along with the poet Ted Hughes, he helped establish the Children's Laureate position in the UK, a huge honor, and he held the position himself from 2003 to 2005. He also co-founded the charity Farms for City Children. It gives kids from cities the chance to experience life on a farm. It shows how dedicated he is to enriching the lives of young people.
Looking at all his work, are there any recurring themes or styles that stand out?
Well, animals are often main characters in his stories. Not just characters, but sources of connection and wisdom. He often explores the effects of war on individuals and families, especially through the eyes of children or animals. And there are always themes of friendship, loyalty, the resilience of the human spirit. His writing style is very evocative, empathetic. It lets readers connect with his characters on a deep level. He weaves together adventure, emotion, and important historical and social themes.
And Kensuke's kingdom itself has some fascinating real-world connections, right?
It does. The story was partly inspired by a true account of a Japanese soldier who was stranded on a Pacific island for years after World War II ended. He didn't even know the war was over.
Wow.
This real-life example of survival and isolation probably sparked Morpurgo's imagination. The name Kensuke came from a Japanese boy he met, and even the name of Michael's dog, Stella Artois, came from one of his young reader's pets. It adds a touch of reality and personal connection.
All these details create such a rich and layered story. So what do you think it is about Kensuke's kingdom that makes it resonate with readers of all ages?
I think it's a combination of things. The exciting adventure immediately pulls you in. You're right there with Michael on his journey. The friendship between Michael and Kensuke is heartwarming and transformative. It teaches us about empathy, understanding, and bridging cultural gaps. It subtly educates us about survival, resilience, respect for nature, but it never feels preachy. And Morpurgo's descriptions of the island are so vivid, you feel the isolation and beauty of Michael's surroundings. Lastly, it introduces younger readers to big historical events and themes like war and peace. It's a story that speaks to everyone and leaves a lasting impression.
You're right. It really does stay with you.
Yeah.
It proves that connections can be found in the most unexpected places. So for you, our listener, Kensuke's kingdom is much more than a survival story. It's about those unexpected bonds that shape our lives, how resilient we can be, and how powerful connections can be even when everything seems different, all against a backdrop of adventure and discovery.
This deep dive really shows us how isolation can lead to profound human connections. And it makes you wonder, what unexpected teachers and relationships might life have in store for you? You might want to explore other stories of survival and unlikely friendships. Look for the common threads. What do they tell us about our ability to connect and understand, even in the toughest times?